Boom, boom, boom. Boom! Good evening, James.
Good evening, Steve. Good evening, Ashley, Gladys and Robin, everybody out there in Facebook, YouTube, and wherever else you may be. Welcome to the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. I'm Thundercloud, Mum calls me James. Tonight, I've got a pirate bandana on. It means nothing. It's just keeping the hair out of my eyes. That's all.
Pirates of the Caribbean.
Yeah, the Pirates of Gyra.
Still, you swam 2 kilometres in
No, I did.
pirate ship.
I did swim 2 kilometres this afternoon, almost non-stop too. It's the longest I've swam in over 2 years.
From pirate ship to pirate ship.
Yeah. Well, on that, let's get the show on the road. Yes, I am the son of pirates, as son of sons of pirates, all the way from the North Sea, Norway, that way, Normandy, invading England, invading Australia, whatever. So on that note, recognise that we are on stolen land, sovereignty's never been ceded, and acknowledge the traditional custodians of the land on which we broadcast, and all the traditional custodians of the land right across this continent called Australia, and the continuing connection to the land of elders past, present and emerging. And move on to the next thing, which is the poetry, which is what we're here for. Tonight I'm going to do a bit of Randolph Stow, just because I'm interested, and I thought, I don't know much about this fella, but as I do my bit of research on him, I find out he was quite a very important poet, very important literary figure.
Very.
Very. And so I'll just read out to you a bit about him first.
Why did he go back to England?
Don't ask me. Yeah. You go ask him and he's dead. He's acknowledged. He was born in 1935. He's acknowledged as one of Australia's finest writers. He graduated from the University of Western Australia, lectured in English at the University of Adelaide, Western Australia and Leeds, so probably got a job there. He's also worked as an anthropologist in New Guinea. Stow has published many novels as well as poetry and opera, libretti, many literary awards including the Miles Franklin to the Islands in 1958, the Patrick White Award in 1979, and he lives in England now. Well, he doesn't now because he's dead.
Dead and gone.
Yep. Unfortunately, that happens to all of us, the best of us and the worst of us. So, on to his poetry. I'm going to be reading firstly out of the Penguin Anthology of Australian Poetry, edited by John Kinsella. And I'm prepared and I've even got the pages marked. I've just got to get to it. The Land's Meaning, and this was written for Sydney Nolan. The love of man is a weed of the waste places. One many think of it as the spinifex of dry souls. I have not, it's true, made the trek to the difficult country where it is said to grow, but signs come back. Reports come back of continuing exploration in that terrain, and certain of our young men who turned in despair from the bar, upsetting a glass, and swore no more for the tin room stank of fly spray, a sending word that the mastery of silence alone is empire. What is God, they say, but a man unwounded in his loneliness? And the question applauded, derided, falls like dust on veranda and bar, and in pauses when thinking ceases and footprints of the recently departed march to the mind's horizons and endure. And often enough, as we turn again and laugh, cloud, hide away the tracks with an acid word, there is one more gone past the door to stand. Wondering, debating in the iron street, and toss a coin and pass to the township's end, where one-eyed Matt, eternal dealer in camels, grins in the dusty yard like a split fruit. But one who has returned, his eyes blurred maps of landscapes still unmapped, gives this account. The third day, cockatoos dropped dead in the air. Then the crows turned back. The camels knelt down and stayed there. And a skin-coloured surf of sandhills jumped the horizon and swamped me. I was bushed for 40 years. And I came to a bloke all alone like a currajong tree. And I said to him, mate, I don't need to know your name. Let me camp in your shade. Let me sleep till the sun goes down. And that's it.
Oh.
So the land's meaning. And that was written for Sydney Nolan by Randolph Stow. So the next one is on a favourite cat. It's probably about the most I can relate to about any animals, but we'll see. I had a cat once. His name was Norm.
There's a norm.
It's about the only thing normal about me. On a favourite cat. Your house was a palace full of arcane nooks to discover and rediscover all your life. A long imperialist adventure where kingdoms bowed down to your triumphal tale. How can a little marble dish, abraded by a rough tongue, so shake the heart? The fall of sparrows is not man's concern. I took no thought of what must leave me for your grace. Under the Mirabella tree in my godson's garden, be earth's pet now. What can I do but wish you a matriarchy of blackbirds to teach you peaceable manners and a malpaquet of a mansion to stalk and explore forever.
What's a malplaquet? I think I know.
Oh, sorry, malplaquet.
Malplaquet.
A malplaquet of a mansion. It's a French word. It's malplaquet.
Is that a model? Does it
I
mean
have
a model?
no
I think?
idea.
I think isn't it the front facade of the mansion?
I'll have to look it up. Malplaquet.
Mm.
What a fascinating word.
Yeah. And now the next one I'm going to read out of. 60 classic Australian poems, because I don't actually have any volumes of Randolph Stow's work here. I did want to read Ernest Briggs, but I couldn't find his either. But, here we go. So Randolph Stow. This one, there was a time, the youth. There was a time, but I do not remember, when this warm, reeking woolshed was a fortress. The wall slits for muskets, and my parents, sentries alert against the shadowy clans. I remember only peace, the predicted harvests, the shadows dwindling beneath our ascending sun. There was a time of shepherds on the heath, wild hills, uncleared, unfenced, a rough camp at the homestead, where there were always strangers whose names were suspect, and screeching laughter of grins from the dying horde. I remember only this cool stone house in the paddocks, raised among olives and palms to my father's name. The penned sheep wait for the shears and the drays depart, weighed down with bales for the white coast, and the steamer. The May rains come, and the harrows pursue the seeding. The harvest winds ripen orchard and corn alike. Grain, tree and beast bring forth in their proper season, and overweight parsons give thanks in the candlelight. My father has faltered in nothing. His hearth is established. His sons are grown. We shall reap the predicted harvests. Only I, riding the flat-topped hills alone, feel in the inland wind the song of the desert. And under alien skin, the surge, the stirring, the wisdom and violence, the land's dark blood. So I'll just read a few notes about that. So though Randolph Stow is generally seen these days as an expatriate novelist, there was a time in the 60s when he was equally considered a rising star of Australian poetry. This view derived mainly from a single volume, A Counterfeit Silence, which came out in 1969. The poem chosen here, There Was a Time, The Youth, is a monologue from Stations, a suite for 3 voices and 3 generations. A central sequence in the book, but poems as a whole presenting the evolving thoughts of the youth's parents, as well as those of the youth himself. It's not hard to sense that Stow, a somewhat rebellious scion of Western Australia, Australian landed families, identifies with the youngest of 3 voices. The young man's riding the flat-top hills alone and sensing as he rides the land's dark blood. Indeed, this is very much a poem of what Chris Wallace Crowder's called squattocratic guilt. The second or third generation awareness in pastoral families of how their forebears came to acquire the land they themselves will inherit, or in some case, refuse to inherit. Such poems with their relatively impractical feelings of guilt can sometimes appear sentimental, but Stow avoids this in a number of ways to emerge with convincing evaluation of all that's taken place and its continuing significance for both victors and vanquished. So just a comment there. So there's also, I came across him just doing my research, there's also a recording out there somewhere in the University of Queensland Press through the early 70s, produced a series of around about 20 or so 45 RPM records with the poets reading out their own works, and in that, at the back of it, there was also the books. So somewhere there's Randolph Stow Poets on Record number 6, somewhere in Australia. So if you got one, and it's just sitting there on your shelf, and it could be here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame, sitting on our shelf and actually getting played, to tell you the truth, because I played one of these poets on record last night for Wednesday, for Chillin' Tuesdays. So you can catch that on YouTube there. Check it out. All right, I'm going to invite Rob up. Rob, welcome back, Rob. It's great to see you here, and Rob's got some music for us as always. Do you need the mic tonight? Yeah, it's here anyway. It's on, so just to set yourself up how you want.
Things. Jangles.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you need a chair? Got a chair? It's up to you.
I don't really.
You don't want it? No, it's all good.
Steve might.
I think we can do that. Are you sitting down there, Doug?
No, I'm going to probably stand.
You're going to stand?
Yeah.
Thank you.
On the 4th of July, 1806, we set sail from the sweet Golden Coast. We were sailing away with a cargo of bricks to the cats in the hull of New York. 'Twas a wonderful craft, it was a rain-pouring off, and over all the wild winds drove. She got timber of loss, she had 27 masts, and we called her the Irish Crew. We had 1 million bales of the best like rack, we had 2 million barrels of gold. We had 3 million sizable fine horses' eyes, we had 4 million barrels of gold. We had 5 million hogs, we had 6 million dogs, we had 7 million barrels of pork. We had 8 million bales of old Antiochs sailed in the hold of the Irish Crew. And we'd all make a coot who played hard on his foot, and the ladies lined up for a set. He was too and was still for his sparkling the drill or the dance of a mother and pet. Really sparse when she talked, he was cocked up the wall, and the older dames under her too. They all knew at a glance when he took her up his head, and he sailed on the Irish Crew. There was Barney McGee from the banks of the Lee. There was Hogan from County's Road. There was Johnny McGinn who was stage simple work, and the man from West End come alone. There was Slugger O'Toole who was drunk as a fool, and Whitey Miller crazy and blue. And your man Nick McCann from the banks of the Van was the skipper of the Irish Crew. We had sailed 7 years when the seasons broke up, and the ship lost its way in the fog. And that whale of a crew was at least down to 2, just myself and the captain's old dog. And the ship struck a rock, oh Lord, what a shock. The bulkhead was turned right over. Dead 9 tons around, and the forward was down on the lock of the Irish Crew. Thank you. Okay, Christmas coming up.
Yay!
wait. The seasons by my side. The horse was lean and lank. This fortune seen his lot. He got into a drifted bank and suddenly got upset. Jingle bells, oh, oh, it is the one who's sway. Hey, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle oh, oh, it is the one who's sway. A day or two ago, the story they must tell. I learned out on the stone, and on my back I go. The ship was riding by in a one-horse open sleigh. He lost his bear, I saw him lay, but quickly stole away. Hey, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, I'm falling to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, I'm falling to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Now the ground is white, so it's while you're young. Take the girl tonight and sing this swinging song. Just get a bottle thing before the end is day. He jumps to an open sleigh and crack, you'll take the lead. Hey, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, I'm falling to ride in a one-horse open sleigh. Hey, jingle bells, jingle bells, jingle all the way. Oh, I'm falling to ride in a one-horse open sleigh.
Thank you. Thanks, Luke. Is that Sans next to you?
Huh?
Is that Sans
looks like
next to
Santa.
you?
You got Santa here.
That had a strange Christmassy feeling.
Oh, I'm glad it did.
Had a real
It's actually
Christmas
that song.
feeling.
There's no actually no real Christmas in that song.
No. Thanks. All right. Do you want to hear a lame wife joke? Some husbands come in handy. Some husbands come unexpectedly. You get it. Anyway. While I was setting up, we've just got to get there to a bit of a... Right. So I'm a bit of a mixed up political person. I really have no idea politically anymore who I'm supposed to think is any decent or not. I just am so confused. I've never really known anyway. However, I did really grow up in Joe Bjelke-Petersen's Queensland. Joe Bjelke-Petersen was the longest serving Premier of Queensland. And he had these sort of, I don't know, what do you call it, ways of fobbing off the media and stuff, a whole bunch of sayings. The most famous of which was, don't you worry about that. Don't you worry about that. Yeah. And I know he was pretty famous in Queensland for it, and pretty sort of my generation and older would certainly remember him. And I'm 52,000, so there you go. Don't you worry about that.
Don't you worry about
It doesn't matter that the earth is not a ball and is flat. It's none of your business why some are skinny or fat. Don't you worry about that. Daylight saving is no good because the curtains fade. Peanuts grow best in the sun and not the shade. Don't you worry about that. You can't sit on a fence, a barbed wire one at that, but you can keep your nose to the ground. There are many ways that you can kill a cat. Don't you worry about that. Put one foot on the flypaper and soon you'll have 2 feet stuck. Goodness gracious, I know what you're trying to do. Don't you worry about that. Just you wait and see. What's good for Queensland is good for Australia. Every time I run into you, you want me to have sex education. That's not a bread and butter issue. Don't you worry about that. Different occasions warrant different methods of annihilating a socialist government. You don't tell frogs anything before you drain the swamp. Don't you worry about that. Thank you.
Who wrote that?
Me.
Did you? Oh,
Yeah, just
bravo.
This week.
Bravo.
Yeah. Yeah.
Don't you worry about that.
I will worry about that.
Yeah, because I showed you the photo of him just before, didn't I? About like 2 minutes ago while Rob was singing away, and I've like gone to Ashley, and I showed him this picture of Joe Bioki Peterson, and he's just his mouth has dropped and hit the floor because I knew it would, and then that's come out, yeah. So yeah, you've got to think of that all night now. So don't you worry about that. Look, just you worry about your poetry, all right? You don't tell frogs anything before you drain the swamp. Steve, would you like to come on up?
Guess so.
Thank you.
Yeah, do you fellas realise that I'm the only female in here?
Yes.
that is.
Have you got one for us tonight too?
No,
Okay.
Dave, not tonight.
Well, last week we had the ladies outnumbered the men, didn't we? Though
Yeah, we did.
we did.
Yeah, what happened?
I don't think I've been there in one of them.
Don't worry about that.
Hey, it's always good to be here at the Australian Poetry Hall of Fame. It's wonderful to be here on Wednesday nights at the open mic. So anybody that's willing to come along and spread a verse or tell a tale or a yarn or something, we're always appreciative of new poets coming in. And it's a good fun bunch of people out here. We can always have a laugh, and don't you worry about that. I'll put that stick there. See, when you open up your eyes to realise the real lives and realise the real lives, there's plenty of real lives out there. See, you know that I'm eccentric, and you know that I'm quite weird. You know that I wear rainbow and I have a long white beard. But if you don't listen to the words, and you'll miss the Spirit's message by thinking I'm absurd. I haven't been around the world, but I've been around the block. I don't know it all, but I know a bloody lot. I don't have a house or a place of abode. I spend most of my time on the side of the road. I'm an outback poet just moving around with my heart in the bush and my feet on the ground. I've travelled this land from the top to the bottom. I've been to the Murray, I've seen the cod rot, and I've travelled from east and I've travelled from west. I've travelled with zeal and I've travelled with zest. Yeah, so this country is a fabulous country, and you know, we do have some interesting political things happening at the moment, but it is a bit of confusion out there too. So if we can just sort of walk in the ways and stay in the moment and live by what we do and where we are, we will be much better off. I might even, some of the poems that I've been writing lately may just whack something in there, you know. If I can find something to read. Yeah, it's always good. Stillness in the movement, there's a feather quiver. I see a crack of light, just a slither, tension in the bow, an enlightened gift, transformative energy, vibrational shift. Release of tension, power expands when the arrow flies from healing hands. This southern land of plenty, blessed by the Father Mother's hand, hurt by or girt by ocean waters, beaches of golden sands, This is a land of beauty, a land of sweeping plains, of rugged mountain ranges, of droughts and driving rains. The fall of fire poured out on mortal man, yes, awakening in this country and moving through this land, like the wave of the source's glory, igniting all the sparks as we clothe ourselves in humility and seek the higher self. This is the land of purpose. We have our future in our hands if we look for supervision and seek for the eternal plan. Let's lose this tag of battlers. We have it in our grip. It's time to join the freedom train. Jump on, enjoy the trip. The Spirit of Christos is here, transforming the hearts of man, raising up his daughters, raising up his sons. Let's not get discouraged. It's different from the rest. The awakening that is here today is loving community, eternal, the best. Times are really changing from the way that it was before. The lessons that we've learned and are still learning now. We are challenged every moment to break the patterns of the past. Don't be bound by fear and anguish of the hurts and memories. They were very helpful to build the character you are today. So stand now in the moment and be the best you can. We have the opportunity to build a brand new world, the way that we would like it, if we take a different way. So listen to your higher self in each and every one. Have compassion for all people. Show love for no reason. The divine lives in your heart, and heaven is what we make it, and not in some place above. So it is time to give your mind a rest and listen to your heart and live in high vibration and unconditional love. A new paradigm. Isn't it exciting to live in this time and watch the world's situation as the mystery unwinds? We stand on the premise of understanding as the last-ditch effort, as the old school make their attempt to hold on in their physical science and the way that it's been. When change is apparent and we know now of energy and the vibration of life and community and caring, not competing and warring and corruption and strife. So if we look forward to the heaven on earth, one with all beings as above and within, don't focus on the distraction. It will steal your love and your joy. Our thoughts are so powerful. We've been asking for change. So keep your eyes on the beauty of nature and the beauty of life. Let them fight, let them battle. Let the universe have them. It's not up to us. Our place is living in unconditional love. Keep your vibration high. Oh, well, that'll do for a couple of little bits and pieces in there.
Tell us a story, a quick story.
A quick story. Ooh,
about quickness. Tell us a quick story.
There's always a quick story to be had.
You've got plenty.
I'll take these glasses off so I can't see anybody. I'm right.
Tell us about something funny that's happened to you.
Don't worry about that.
Well, see, a few years ago I was involved with the Oracles of the Bush, and I always like to tell my story of Dunnies, so hopefully it'll fit in. See, I was brought up in the country in a place called Wedderburn on the side of the Georges River with the stags and the elks and the ferns. There wasn't many luxuries, no, things weren't very plush, but we had this long drop dunny called the Orifice of the Bush. There's one thing that I know for sure, and I spent a lot of time just doodling in the dirt there, and I even wrote some rhyme. A place to fantasise and figure out. But everything was true. A hideout from the washing up like young lads often do. I'd always lift the lid up to avoid a bit of fright, to eradicate the chances of the dreaded redback bite. Like mum's old chook, I'd settle in with me pants around me knees to the sound of the neighbours' rampant bull and fruit bats in the trees. Like a medieval king, I'd sit upon his gilded throne, my favourite place, I must admit, in our lovely country home. Yes, I'm a connoisseur of dummies, of this it is a fact. A place to try, a place to check before I hang my hat. I remember when I left the bush in a council house in town, there was an outhouse out the back, a place to settle down. It wasn't quite as our country home, but it had all the mods and cons. Running water, electric light, and an oven to cook scones. I'd only been there a week, I think, when I awoke with an awful fright. There was a shadow past the window in the middle of the night. I'd heard about these prowlers and their low-down thieving tricks, but they'd taken on the wrong bloke this time, this lad from out the sticks. Well, I hit the floor a running. There wasn't time to put on clothes. I'll get that flaming larrikin and I'll probably break his nose. Through the front door quietly, the blood was pumping fast. I'd stop him at the gate, I thought, as the bare feet hit the grass. He was running up the footpath with his booty on his back. I'd played rugby in my school days and I'd stop him in his track. Well, I hit him round the ankles and he had nowhere to go. Yeah, I dropped him like a dunny lid and all he said was, "No, the smell was something awful. I'd never live it down. I'd nailed the poor old dunny man and I dropped him on the ground." There was excretion all across the road and right across the grass and right across the road. The lid had left the dunny can and he dropped the flaming load. Well, throughout my years of wandering, I think I've tried the lot. There's the environmental sound ones, there's flush lavatories and there's pots. There's collectors of pubs, of pins, of bottle stamps and plants. But I'm the international. No, universal secretary of the place you drop your pants. I've tested loos across this land and I've tried the loos abroad. There's the ones you pull the chain on, there's authentic ones, and there's frauds, but there's nothing in comparison when you have to strain and push as a good old Aussie dunny and the orifice of the bush.
Oh, that's funny.
Always a funny one, eh? There's some, and some of them regular ones, you know, like near the rambling Richmond River where the ghosts of cedar barges rise from derelicts and skeletons telling tales of years gone by, of the early cedar cutters who braved the coastal ranges to reap the valued harvest at the massive forest side. But the years have passed so quickly and the banks are now near barren through the mighty Richmond Valley, from Nashua down to Corrockeye, and the river's seldom used now for transport or for pleasure, and the water's brown and mud-stained as the land gives up the fight. From years of torrential downpours it's caused the land erosion, and floods that stole the topsoil that the big scrub held in place. Where once there was an abundance of the fighting Richmond black bass, now from the murky muddy waters comes the catfish and the eel. Yes, the Richmond's only one place in this wondrous world around us. The man has taken over and he's stirred the flaming pot. But he'll reap his just deserts though when he plays with Mother Nature. And she says the game's now over and starves the bloody lot. By the sluggish River Gwyder lived this wicked redback spider, who was just about as vicious as could be. Now the place he made his camp in was this rusty Jones's jam tin, in a paddock near the showground at Moree. Well, near him lay his shearer snoozing. He'd been drinking beer and boozing all the night before and all the previous day. And the cooking of the cookers and the noise of the Showtown spruikers failed to raise him from the trance in which he lay. Well, there came this crafty-looking spieler with a dainty-looking Sheila. They were collecting wood to make a fire. And he said, "There's a boozer and he's going to be a loser. If he isn't, you can christen me a liar. Well, you just stand and take it, honey, while I fan this mug for money, and we'll have some dainty luxuries for tea." But she said, "Don't be silly. You go back and boil the billy. You can safely leave this mug to little me." Well, she circled ever nearer to that dopey-looking shearer, his pockets bulging fast asleep and snug. But she never saw the spider that was circling round beside her. She was too busy with the money and the mug. Well, the spider needed dinner. He'd been daily growing thinner. He fasted long and for her feed he yearned. When she reached that shearer's pocket, he darted like a rocket and he bit that spieler's Sheila on the stern. Well, the Sheila started squealing, the clothes she was unpeeling. To hear her yells would make you feel forlorn. While one hand on the bite was pressing, the other was undressing. and she reached the camp the way that she was born. Well, the shearer, pale and haggard, back to town he staggered, where he caught a train and he gave the birds a rest. But he'll never know the spider that was living by the guider that saved him 90 smackers of the best. Thanks, James. Have a lovely night, eh?
All right. Yeah. So that spider running around beside it sort of reminded me of just a little thought that I thought this week. So, if a man chases a squirrel around a tree, the man is running around the tree, but he's also running around the squirrel, and the squirrel is also running around the man.
Well, there you go. That's profound.
Yeah. But there's a kid in the swimming pool today asked me, he said, "How old are you?" I said, "I'm 52,000.
Oh, they would have loved that at Gyra.
Well, I didn't say years of what, but he said, "You're 52,000? Really?" Yeah. And he's like, "Hey, he's 52,000 years old." He's yelled to his friends. Well, so before I get Ashley up, so a couple of nights ago, I wrote this one. I jumped 10 years into the future and then jumped 44 years. And then 2,000 years and 64,000 more. And what happens is amazing. There's so much new to learn. So I'll tell you all about it in your future when I return. Yeah, and then, that was sort of like, I was trying to write that as I was going to bed, and I was just so tired, I was like drowsing off, and so, but the next morning, the time traveller's good news came back to me, like when I returned from the future. The time traveller's good news. Oh, it's also got, at the end, it's got a PS called the X-Files. Extra. It's rated X. And it makes reference to a redhead named Scully, who was, she was the redhead, the hot redhead in the X-Files TV show. Yeah. So, all right, the time traveller's good news. I've just come back from the future. A long time I've been away to the year 64,069 on the 36th of May. People fly with no machines. They use crystal levitation, telepathically send their thoughts like dolphin communication. They wear no clothes in winter or summer and everyone's super fit. They eat one meal of raw greens per week and rarely ever shit. There's no money and no ownership. And there is no tax, everyone has a home, no job, and everyone is relaxed. They sing, dance, meditate, do yoga and lots of art, no prisons, no violence. But there's laughter and joy, and everyone lives from the heart. Birds, butterflies land on their hands. Even they have no fear. Gratitude and nurturance are the attitude every day of the year. I've just come back from the distant future where life is divine on the 36th of May in the year 64,069. Things are very different, it's lovely, but it's not strange. In the far distant future there's been a positive consciousness change. I'm going back next week to another far distant future too, maybe the 40th of February in 71,502. Now, should I take my clothes off for this? No, I won't. I'll stay dressed. The X-Files Extra, it's only a quatrain. In the future years 64,069, I had very good luck. You know what rhymes with that, don't you? I met a redhead named Scully, and she had a suck and then we had a fuck. And then she introduced me to all her hot and horny friends, and I'll leave it to your imagination. But did I mention the shortage of men? You're like, hey, I'm single, I've got an imagination. Hey. All right, I'm going to invite Ashley up. I'll take you there, Rob.
Where?
To the
I want to go.
U64,069. You can go and take it there. Yeah.
Well, well, it's peculiar that I should be here tonight.
Welcome back.
But most Ashley Albanese indeed saying something or other. I went to the border, to the Queensland border, and I stood with my fascist, just means bundle in Latin, and I looked across the border and I thought, what hypothesis relates to a man standing with 3 indigo sticks in his hand, looking across the border? No, this is true. This happened.
I know.
Probably is. What are the implications of that for the power complex of someone who sat in the valley behind him at 14 reading Friedrich Nietzsche? And what are the parameters? And so I went back to Moorlambar and I got a big black texture and I got a big sheet of white and I drew a black line from edge to edge, and that was enough. Hypothesis, implications, parameters. Oh, actually, James prefers testing, which makes hip. If you have the other one, it's hip, hop, hop. Now, before madness overtakes us all, and we discover that the top American science fiction writer is a fan of Bandara, which is an esoteric comment. But I discovered that today, and I've been having to face my reality ever since. Well, I was looking at this book of anthology of Australian literature that went into all embassies and consulates around the world, and I was flicking through and I discovered it's got no Geoffrey Dutton and it's got no TGA Hungerford, so I'm going to have a special burn of the white leaves as I rip them out. No, I'm only joking. I wouldn't be so, but all anthologies have a flaw, as have all school classrooms, unless the kids have turned into ants. And there's always something that we miss, isn't there, in the realms of consciousness out there facing the border. Talking about Bjelke tonight reminded me of when I went in a walk across the Queensland-New South Wales border at Coolangatta, and Russ, big Russ, sat in a, I think it was a Mercedes, in this big government Mercedes. He sat on the border and he watched us march from Coolangatta into Tweed Heads to protest the Vietnam War. And he looked particularly at me because I was a young businessman in that street and community. And I looked back at him, and I'm still looking. He was an interesting fellow, Russ. He was very generous. He could be very kind with his own power and money and other people's, but still there are shadows there. But Russ, talking about Australiana, was a real character. Oh boy. Just some simple pieces. I saw a black man on the side of the road. He was looking at my white Cadillac. Even though it was a white Cadillac, he wanted to join me. He wanted me to sit next to him while he drove. And I thought that that's the ultimate poem, isn't it? Seeking out for a social meaning as everything flashes by. Now, I don't want to lose my place here because I picked some funny things. I love the magic pudding. I love Norman Lindsay, who's a great figure, somewhat relegated right now. So here's a little bit of magic pudding as we come towards Christmas. If there's anything better than lying on leaves, it's rising from leaves at dawning. If there's anything better than sleeping at eve, it's waking up in the morning. If there's anything better than camp firelight, it's bright sunshine on waking. If there's anything better than puddin' at night, it's puddin' when day is breaking. If there's anything better than singing away while the stars are gaily shinning, why, it's singing a song at dawn of day on puddin' for breakfast dinner. Yes, poor old Lindsay. Anyone who has a big Australian library near them in a university, whatever, can go and get the magic pudding and look at his inimitable sketches and drawings. They are very fine and very idiosyncratic. A couple of pieces by Barry Humphries. Barry and I do not vote in the same way, but we vote in the same ballot box. Mr. Humphries once wrote this poem for Elizabeth Jolly. Still echoes of Western Australia here tonight. Maroon. You've read in all the magazines about the colour question. Should we be black, off-white or beige? May I make a suggestion? Maroon's my favourite colour. It's a lovely shade, I think. It's a real hard colour to describe. Not purple and not pink. All our family loves it, and you ought to see our home. From the bedroom to the laundry, every room's maroon. When we bought our home in Moonee Ponds, it didn't have a phone, but it had one thing to offer: the toilet was maroon. Look, I fell in love with it at once. I felt the place was mine. You see, the day I married Norm, my bridesmaids were in wine. Our wedding cake was iced to match and glowed in splendour lonely, and they drank our toast in Burgundy, which sparkled so maroonly. The day my mother had her turn, we heard an awful groan. I dropped young Ken, dashed to her room, and there she was, maroon. And now she's in the twilight home. We're going to England soon, but one English custom gets me goat. They call maroon maroon. Very Australian, that. Here we have Edna's Hymn. They're very funny and very cruel, aren't they? A lot of Signor Humphreys outpourings. Edna's Hymn. Australia is a Saturday with races on the trenny. Australia is the talky smell of someone else's granny. Australia is a kiddie with zinc cream on his nose. Australia's voice is Melba's voice. It's also Normie Rhodes. Australia's famous postage stamps are stuffed with flowers and fauna. Australia is the little man who's open round a corner. Australia is the sunburnt land of sand and surf and snow. All ye who do not love her, ye know where ye can go. Sardonic. Makes me think of those paintings of Geoffrey Smart's where he has a bald gentleman standing on the side of an empty freeway, but he's obviously standing there alone and quite full up in his loneliness. I'll finish with a piece by Thomas Shapcott. I read about half a year ago or 8 months ago a poem about the night I met him at Moorlambar High School. And I was thinking about this while sitting on the bench looking across at the courthouse the other day in Main Street, Moorlambar. And people were drifting past me. They drift in Moorlambar, not like here on the granite where snowflakes might strike you down at any moment. Anyway, people like myself were drifting past, and I thought, they're living the dream, but the dream can't live them. This is my last little piece for tonight. I think it's from Shabby Town Calendar. Its best collections, such as Shabby Town Calendar and the City of Home, show the importance of place and autobiography, and have that redolent, smeary sweatishness of Ipswich on a hot Sunday night after you've been to church and you've managed to have 3 glasses of wine over a roast at 103 degrees, whatever it is now in Celsius. The city of home, and I suppose as I drove up from Wollongong today, there are always echoes of these correlatives, or as Eliot would say, objective correlatives, or images and metaphors. The city of home. The city of home is reached only in dreams. It has a town centre, a river with curved bridges, and a famous clock tower. There are always pigeons which signify abundance, not overpopulation. There are no walls, no toll gates, no ribbon developments, full of hoardings, carpet emporia, or used car allotments. The city of home has retained only stone monuments and spires and the shady maze of the municipal gardens. Or perhaps secret childhood wildernesses of bramble. The smell of lantana still clings to an old pullover. You approach it from the air. It is a plan, a totality. It is worthy of all your best secrets and the secrets of others. Like all great cities, the city of home reaches back into all the generations, all the inheritances, though you have your own special associations and insist on the second seat outside for your coffee. There is no other coffee, no taste in all the world to compare with that coffee. Yes, you insist. The second chair, the one under the awning where you can glimpse the fountain and the bronze angel. The city of home is like no other city, not even the city of remembering or the cities of the plain. The city of home has only one drawback, but that is terrible. The city of home is empty of people. All its songs are the songs of exile. He knew many things, Mr. Shapcott. I'll see him in his white shirt, talking as he rushed off to get home on the bad road system of 1967 or 8 to sit for his accountancy exam the day after he arrived home early in the morning of that day to be a day after. And I remember us talking about the Vietnam War and the profound envisioning of the future which he could see that it would bring upon us.
Thank you very much, Ashley. What else have I got for you tonight? Well, I don't know. It wasn't overly productive this week. But I made someone turned into a piss crystal. Alright, Lucy Juicy went for a walk across the Simpson Desert. She took no water with her despite the scorching weather. As Lucy Juicy crossed the desert, the temperature hit 30. She hadn't had a drink and she was getting pretty thirsty. She dropped her pants and peed into a plastic cup. Then Lucy Juicy took the cup and drank the whole thing up. Lucy Juicy drank her pee and thought it tasted like white wine. Went off walking into the desert and she was feeling fine. They found her in the morning, she turned into a crystal. Lucy Juicy drank so much piss she turned into a pistol.
Oh!
I don't know.
Oh!
All that uric acid built up and she just crystallised, it's like extreme gout. I don't know, yeah. She just turned into a big uric acid. That was what was going on in my mind when I wrote it anyway. Yeah.
You're moving towards Miroslav Hollow.
Yeah, she just dried out in the desert.
No, you didn't.
She didn't stink
Shriveled
anymore.
up.
Yeah.
Give us a poem about a camel.
Oh gosh, yeah, I couldn't I? I'll have to
Another
think
day.
about something for
Another
that. Yeah. The arms race? The arms race is silly, foolish and funny, making killing machines cost so much money.
Yeah, that's
Which could grow food and house the poor, provide free education, lower taxes and more. If we outlawed the making of killing machines, got rid of all the borders, all joined the same thing, got rid of the armies, stopped the arm race and made museums out of the old army base, and all around the world we could all thrive, cooperate, not compete and barely survive.
Yeah.
That's it.
Great.
Steve Irwin walks into a bar. Like, I know we're Australian, you're not supposed to make Steve Irwin jokes, but I'm going. Yeah.
Perhaps he's a sheep shearer in heaven.
Maybe.
Bah, bah.
The bartender looks at him and up and down and says, "You stink." And Steve says, "Yeah, I've been dead 16 years. Ray Martin comes running in yelling, "Help, I've been stung by a bee, I'm going into anaphylaxis." The barman looks at him and says, "It's a deadly sting, Ray." Steve Irwin punches the barman, he goes stumbling out the door and steps on a bindi. Oh well. And look, and that's pretty much it for me.
Sing a song.
Oh, I
Hit from him.
could. I do have another one, but
Do the one-legged stockman.
the one-legged stockman. I've got to find it.
I love that.
I wish I could find it.
Oh, it doesn't matter.
I have,
I
yeah.
like the one-legged stockman.
I have got one more. It's about Super Ant.
Super ant.
Yeah, I know. They're a bit sort of surrealistic this week. I don't know what was going on in my head. What goes on, really?
You're becoming
Maybe-
a long-distance swimmer.
Oh, I need to get out in the air and write about like birds and stuff more. Yeah,
Do a bit of flying.
yeah. Go and walk around the lagoon. I've got to get that inspiration to write about swans there, Rob. Still, yeah. Okay, he's got mentioning drug use. Okay, so yeah, language warning or concept warning for any Liz watching. Super Ant is super strong from crawling on a psychonaut's bong and ingested Changa DMT and got Super Ant powers for free. Super Ant could stop a truck. He once saved a baby duck and a kitten in a tree. He bit it and made it jump free. He has a super mighty roar, which with once he stopped a nuclear war. Punched the bombs with his fist. They tried to shoot him, but they missed. For him, the tanks were just like toys, and the politicians were naughty boys. Super Ant smacked them hard, put them in the prison yard, made them write for very long about why nuclear war is wrong. Super Ant has saved the world. He's loved by every boy and girl. He's held in a high, exalted position. He's on a kind, compassionate mission. He now vibrates with much love, known as the anti-nationalist peace stuff, but Super Ant is super humble. You'll never ever hear him grumble, and you'll never ever hear him boast. For breakfast, he eats crumbs of toast and also likes to taste my honey and tell jokes that are really, really funny. And you've already heard his lame wife joke, so I can't even tell that now. Yeah. But anyway. All right, well, that's it. Thank you very much for coming, everyone. Welcome back, Steve, Rob,
Yeah.
and Ashley,
Hi.
and Gladys.
I came from the border today.
You did, yeah.
Yeah, I came there yesterday.
South of the border.
Yeah, and he came yesterday. And foreign people watching would find it interesting that two poets have travelled here that distance from the border 500 kilometres
It's
away.
a very big country. Yes.
For them, sitting in a little apartment in Lyon, if you were watching this, it would be amazing to think of what us two have done.
Yeah, that's like Paris to like the
Marseille.
south. Marseille, yeah. Most nearly right away across France, yeah. 8 hours at its max, yeah. All right, well, thank you very much, everyone, for coming, and have a lovely evening, and good night.
Good night, James.
May I have another cup of tea, please? Sure. That coconut drink.